We follow the story in East Palestine, Ohio very closely. Now here's news of another industrial disaster. It's now been over 40 days since the Michigan Department of Health released health data showing the Graphic Packaging International paper mill in Kalamazoo is releasing toxic levels of more than 30 kinds of gas into the surrounding neighborhood 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And Governor Gretchen Whitmer has yet to say anything on the subject. Status Coup News reports that residents in Northside Kalamazoo, a predominantly black neighborhood located near the plant, report extremely high levels of COPD, heart disease, and other issues. Here's their interview with a resident back in April.
Like after 5 o'clock, it gets worse. The steam or the smoke comes out. But after 5, 6 o'clock, they really put it on torpedo, and it just fill up the whole sky. It looked like the clouds done came all the way down out the sky. It'd be so filled up.
I feel like they turn the boilers on and off at certain times when there's not a lot of people that, you know, are working inside the city limits or whatever. Most of the people go home, so they just really don't care about the residents, you know, living over here.
Your daughter, who was so young, did she have like minor asthma as a younger child and it progressively got worse with more exposure next to the plant?
Yes, sir, it did. She had it when she was younger, and it got worse and worse and worse. And she had an asthma attack, and she couldn't be saved this time.
Joining us now to break down the situation is CEO of Status Coup News and journalist Jordan Chariton. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, can you give us some background and context? How long has this plant been spewing these chemicals into the air? And when did residents first become aware that there were these toxic levels that were they could attribute their health problems to?
Yeah, so Graphic Packaging has been on the north side, predominantly black neighborhood for decades. And residents always smelled something, but it wasn't always, obvious where it was coming from. But then basically within the last decades, residents directly near the plant started complaining to city council, the mayor, the state health department, et cetera, that the plant, it was a horrible smell. Residents, because the government wasn't doing anything, like went door to door surveying, asthma rates. And everybody started realizing, wow, we all have asthma in this neighborhood. There was black infant death 5 times the rate of white infant death in Kalamazoo. Predominantly, this area is where black people live. And residents were pleading, not just because it was a horrible smell, but because of the high asthma rates, COPD, heart disease, cancers. Just being there for 2 days, my cameraman and I got sick reporting next to that plant. So only imagine living there 24/7. And they were basically getting stonewalled. There was a health study that was delayed for 3 years. I don't know why it took 3 years. It was suddenly released after we went there and reported on it. And it showed that they're releasing hazardous levels of hydrogen sulfide. And I believe there's a lot of other contaminants they're releasing that the health study kind of did not thoroughly look at. So Governor Whitmer, for whatever reason, has been silent. Her administration actually helped this paper mill, which is a multi-billion-dollar packaging company. They helped the paper mill expand 2 years ago. So that might have something to do with why they're kind of quiet now.
So is there any effort underway on the government's part to fix this issue, even if Whitmer hasn't specifically herself spoken out about it?
So I wish this was an Onion headline, but basically the health department, after they released the study, their recommendation was stay inside if it smells particularly bad and use a nebulizer. They held a town hall meeting with residents, which was eerily similar to the early days of Flint, which was kind of checking a box that we're doing something, but we're not really doing something. They said that they need to do additional studies and research after 3 years of this study. But basically, the top line was if it smells particularly bad, stay inside. If you have asthma, which most of these people now do, use a nebulizer. And other than that, not much. I've spoken with residents who are basically talking to health department officials who are kind of telling them unofficially, our hands are tied. The governor needs to do something. It's really the governor who could declare a public emergency, and with that could come resources from the state and or relocation of this plant. I should add, the plant is not using carbon filters, and the plant's employees, there's high rates of cancer for former employees of this plant. Totally anecdotal. After I did that report next to the plant, I was going to my car, and a gentleman asked me what was I doing. So we got to talking, and I realized he works in the plant. He didn't really know what they were releasing, and he said he's only been working there a few months, and his asthma has gotten out of control. And that's somebody in the plant. So it just seems like an open kind of poisoning of a community. Now it's actually shifting to the white part of town, because in 2021, thanks to the governor's administration helping them expand with a $125 million bond deal, now it is that expansion, which released another 500 million tons. It is now going to the west side of Kalamazoo, which is more white. So predominantly the black neighborhood is getting it horribly, but now it's shifting to the whites part of town. So you're having parents there starting to complain at school meetings.
Jordan, this is incredible reporting. Just so people know, COPD is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, a group of diseases that cause airflow blockage and breathing-related problems. And you said just being in Kalamazoo for the short duration that you were on the ground doing this important reporting work, you and your camera crew also started experiencing symptoms. Can you tell us about those symptoms?
Yeah, so the first day we did a live stream about a half block away. My throat instantly was burning. And the longer I was live, I started feeling kind of disoriented, like kind of dizzy. My cameraman got a severe headache that lasted a few days. My eyes were burning. And then when I got home, I mean, really for 2 weeks, I kind of had like a swollen eye, which people I spoke with said, I mean, it's a mishmash of chemicals they're releasing, and the health study only really addressed hydrogen sulfide. So who knows what it was from? But yeah, I mean, people who watched the videos, you could tell I was kind of mumbling words a little bit, because being so close to that plant, it's disorienting whatever they're releasing. And the residents that live close to the plant, and with the wind, I mean, it's not like it's just within a block or two. This is going all across the city. They're hacking up their lungs, particularly like that one resident said, after 5, 6 o'clock at night, it seems like they're emitting a lot more of these toxic gases. So you have residents just hacking throughout the night. I've spoken with residents between dizziness, nausea, and then there's just kind of being a prisoner in your own community part. I mean, I've spoken with residents that, you know, they had their daughter's graduation and had guests over, and everybody wants to leave because it stinks. They can't open the windows during the summer. There's playgrounds in the community that are empty because the parents aren't sending their kids out to play. There's schools that are not sending kids out for recess. I mean, this is happening like in Michigan, not some of the country. The governor, to her credit, reacted to the Benton Harbor water lead crisis in 2021 very swiftly. Benton Harbor was predominantly black. This is also a predominantly black neighborhood, but she's silent. She's not responding to my outlet. From what I've heard, she hasn't responded to other news outlets. The only thing I could think of is this governor's economic board. Again, knowing the complaints that were coming, this plant had also been fined several times by the state health department, still approved this company for a $125 million bond deal. The only reason I could think of that she wouldn't want to do anything about this, because then there's obviously questions. Well, why would you let this company emit more volatile gases if you already knew of the complaints? So bottom line, I mean, she's a Democratic governor. Obviously, we have the Flint water crisis that happened under a Republican, but she has not exactly ended that crisis. And now this. And it's just across the board in Michigan, there's a lot of environmental calamities, corruption. I could tell you that we have audio of city council members in Kalamazoo 3 years ago saying they were told kind of shh about this because of the economic relationship between the city and this major employer. It employs 650 residents there. So at the end of the day, I mean, residents are very sick. In 2015, 1,950, so almost 2,000 black infants under the age of 1 died in Kalamazoo County.
Oh my
God. They predominantly live in this neighborhood. And then afterwards, mysteriously, the data was removed from the website. So I can't tell you what the numbers have been since then. But in 2015, it was almost 2,000 infants under the age of 1 in this neighborhood. So this is a public health emergency, similar to East Palestine, that's not being covered that way. And the governor is just kind of running at the clock, which has national implications, as people know. I mean, Biden was considering her for vice president. There's been glowing profile pieces about her, potential rumors of 2028 in a couple of years. So this is going to come back if she doesn't do something now.
Sure. What you're describing actually has, a lot of similarities to the Flint water crisis. If I recall, was partly caused by switching a water source because they thought a new plant would, similarly to what you just described, generate economic activity and jobs. Also, Detroit having horrible air quality at the same time we were dealing with these Canadian forests sweeping the East Coast in New York, D.C., other places. It hit Detroit. Detroit had the second worst air quality of anywhere for a couple days. So hopefully people are paying attention and something gets done. Jordan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.